Hello, IVA families. Welcome to our brand new sixth graders and the few incoming seventh graders, to our returning seventh and eighth graders. It's been a while since we've talked to you. My name is Jackie Bryant. I'm the principal at IVA. And we wanted to make sure that as we are firmly in the summer and beginning to think about the fall, actually, we've been thinking about the fall for a while, that we give you some of the information about what we've been processing, the constraints that we're up against. So what we've done is recorded a video to let you know what IVA has turned to as the best working model, and to invite you into understanding that more and then having that information to be able to give us feedback. So I'm going to introduce myself again and then allow the staff who's with me on their summer vacation, but figuring this out from this little prairie of a school, I'll have them introduce themselves as well. So again, my name is Jackie Bryant. I'm the principal, and this is our 8th year, my 8th year as a principal, and I also am a parent of an IVA student for the first time this year. So I'm really looking forward to that additional perspective.
And my name is Paul Burns. I was also a parent of an IVA student who just moved on to high school. I teach science at IVA and am looking forward to continuing to work in whatever model we come up with, considering the experience that I had over this last spring where I taught everything on Zoom.
I'm Miss Noble. I teach math at IVA. I enjoy spending my summer looking at how to organize and plan schedules. So this has been a fun project for me this summer to think about all these constraints.
And I'm Miss Simpson, and I also teach math. Just like Miss Noble, I enjoy these types of projects where things fit together. But in addition to that, I'm a newer teacher, and in my experience growing up as a student, I've done a lot of online schooling, both in middle school, high school, and also in my credential program. So I've been on the other side of it, and also having taught through it, it's helpful to see it from both sides to work through this video.
So this last spring, when we all went into quarantine, IVA was able to turn to our faculty and staff and together really think through how we can shift our learning to an online only model. We learned a lot last spring, and it just, honestly, it's all a little bit disappointing because we know that being in person is the best way to learn. And we're coming to those terms. We are trying to figure out how we can move into the fall with the best safety that's possible for our students, but a learning that is provided to them that fits with our mission. So I'm going to read you our mission because all of our decision making aligns with our mission. Our mission is to foster meaningful growth in intellectual character virtues in a thoughtful, challenging, and supportive academic environment. And in this slideshow, what we are going to do is we're going to present to you how we're creating a model that will prioritize the health of our students and allow us to create a situation, a learning model where students will receive support and rigor and challenge within all the constraints that we know at this point. And also the point of this video is to be able to explain all of the things that we've considered and invite feedback from you. When we are making decisions, we know that we turn to the intellectual virtues. And so some of those that we've really been turning to is curiosity as we continue to learn all the information, thoroughness so that we're making a very careful decision, and also open-mindedness so that we're thinking from all of the perspectives that might be considered. And so here are some of them.
Well, on the back of that, there's so much information that we understand is coming at all of us. And we thought about this in many different ways and continue to think about this process, considering parents, considering students, considering our teachers and staff. And we just understand that while we do have a good working model here, it's going to also depend on what the local health departments are saying, what our state is saying, and also what our local authorizer is saying.
Some of the health constraints that we definitely know about from the CDC directly are that students, teachers, and staff will be required to wear a face mask at all times.
Another is that our rooms are going to be reorganized. The desks will be moved around so that we can maintain 6 feet of social distancing when students are on campus.
We will also be required to take temperatures upon arrival every day. So it's been recommended to have a staggered schedule, making this easier so there's not as many students at the same time.
As we've been moving around the rooms and making it so that there are less students in each room to maintain that social distancing, we're calling these groups bubbles. So there'll be bubbles of students in each room, less than we normally have. And we have a small class size with 26 to 1. It's going to be even less than that. And in event of exposure, that means that we'll be able to quarantine those bubbles before possibly quarantining the entire school before we're moving online.
Kind of going along with these restrictions within the room and the spacing and the fewer students, any changing of rooms would require sanitizing all materials and surfaces, whether that's students moving or teachers moving.
We also are required to not have any large gatherings. That means we need to rethink what break and lunch looks like, and also limit movement in class and between classes.
The constraints that we have to think of as IVA are, we're looking at the facilities, making sure that we have a 6-foot social distance between students, and that means that we'll only have 13 students per class. We also recognize that teachers need to be able to support in-class and online instruction, so we will need time to create, plan, and evaluate both those methods of teaching. We also are looking at how objects and surfaces must be cleaned after each student and class has been inside the classroom. And then in the event of an exposure, it's possible for the entire school to be moved online.
As a school, we've also been thinking about just our preferences. We like the idea of keeping students in their bubble with the same schedule to prevent more exposure and allow quick quarantine. We like to have Mondays as a teacher preparation day and a student's independent study day, because most school holidays fall on a Monday, and that will allow us to not lose that in-person time with students, since we value time in person with students. And then the last one is families will always have the choice, no matter what, to choose all online learning for their child. So even if we are meeting in person, and if you need your child to stay home for whatever reason, we will facilitate that.
So with all, so go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. With all of these constraints, we just want to reveal, here's the best working model that we've come to after looking at all the possible models that have been talked about out there. And this model specifically shows you where students are during the day. And there's also where students are at home. So our teachers can talk to that, but I'll let our teachers explain what we're seeing here in this model.
Okay, so after considering all of our constraints, this is the best working model that we have right now, and it's called a working model because it could change depending on what we hear from Long Beach Unified and other agencies. You can see in this model that there's a staggered start for each grade level. So 6th graders come earliest in the morning and do their 3 blocks before lunch. So they end at 11:40. 7th graders come an hour later. They start at 9:30 and end at 12:50, and then they take their lunch to go home. And then 8th graders kind of have that afternoon block that starts after lunch. So they would pick up their lunch, and then they would have class after lunch from 12:10 to 3:30. The stagger schedule helps with not just checking temperatures at the beginning of the day, but also it allows us to have fewer kids on campus at any one given time. So instead of having all of our classrooms full to our new half capacity, now we can have some empty spaces. And that allows us to keep kids in one room instead of asking them to move from room to room. So that's the benefit of that, like, more staggered schedule, is we only have 6 bubbles of kids on campus at any given time instead of 9. Um, you'll see on this schedule that there are some blank spots. For example, the afternoon for 6th graders is free. 7th graders has an early morning block that's free and an afternoon block that's free, and 8th graders have their mornings free. Those, for the kids that are at home, that's when their teachers would be available to do some online learning with them. So your student would come like on Tuesday and Thursday, but on Wednesday and Friday, they'd be home, and the teachers would have time in their schedule to be present for the students who are also at home.
I appreciate the word that you use, just being present. And we know that in the spring, what was so difficult and unmotivating often is that we weren't able to have the same sort of presence with our students. We weren't able to see them in the same way. And so everything that we're considering is taking the learning from the spring and imagining the best option with the constraints that we have. And we really want to get this option to you as soon as we can, so that you can begin imagining what this will be like for your family, so that you can ask us more questions, so that you can provide more feedback. But if you want to know all the details, all the plans that we've considered, we are going to be having a part 2 video, and that will explain each and every one of the models, what the pros and cons of those models are. We're recording that in a separate video for you, but it is aligned with our mission that we would be very thoughtful, that we would explain our decision making, that we would invite your feedback into this decision making. We are here for your students, so that they and that we can learn and live well together. So thank you for watching this. Let us know in the survey what questions you have.
All right, and that's the end of our recording.